Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the colors and the playing of the national anthem. Where's that? Arm. Thank you. Please have your seats. Good morning. My name is Master Sergeant Ben Ackerman, Vice Chairman for the Wayne County Veterans and Patriots Coalition, and your host for today's ceremony. We are honored to have all of you, our friends, family, and leaders from the city of Goldsboro, Wayne County, and Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in attendance with us today. More importantly, we would like to recognize today the men and women who we call Vietnam veterans. Would all Vietnam veterans in attendance today please stand to be recognized? Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to clap and not let my papers fly away at the same time. Apologize. On 29 March 1974, President Richard Nixon established the first Vietnam Veterans Day. It signified the one-year anniversary of the return of the last combat troops from Vietnam, but also the last day the prisoners of war held in North Vietnam arrived on American soil. The Vietnam War is a story of sacrifice and dedication as service members from all colors, creeds, and backgrounds banded together with the South Vietnamese Army and other allies to do what we do best as Americans, defend the rights of a free people from the oppression of tyranny and hate. On 12 January 1962, the U.S. marked its first combat mission against the Viet Cong when U.S. Army pilots lifted more than 1,000 South Vietnamese service members to capture a National Liberation Front stronghold near Saigon. Operation Chopper, as it was known, was the start of more than a decade of conflict where we saw more than 3 million Americans serve and over 58,000 make the ultimate sacrifice. The men and women who served during the Vietnam War fought a cruel and torturous enemies, rough field conditions, endless hours of conflict, and the loss of their brothers and sisters in arms on the battlefield. The greatest atrocity of it all, though, is the hardships they faced when they got home, where after fighting a politically unpopular war, they were shunned, spat on, and generally neglected. This generation of heroes were not offered the hero's welcome they deserved, and returned bearing both visible and not so visible scars of a battlefield that was unforgiving and a nation that was almost as unwelcoming. Of the nearly 22,000 veterans in Wayne County, it is estimated that half of those are registered with the Veterans Administration. It is further estimated that of that 11,000, nearly 70% of those are Vietnam-era veterans. It is why we gather today to recognize the sacrifices of those from the Vietnam War and to offer them a very well long overdue welcome home. We also want to take this moment to recognize those that are unable to stand with us today, those that made it back from the battlefield but have succumbed to wounds that were suffered from their sacrifice or have passed as years gone by. We offer them this singular moment of silence. And finally, we recognize those that still remain unaccounted for. These Americans were either captured or went missing during the 11 years this conflict went on and have not yet been returned home. Their families deprived of that closure, hoping every day to have their loved one return home to them. Of the 1,613 service members identified as casualties from the state of North Carolina, 39 of those remain unaccounted for. Some of them from right here in Wayne County. Heroes like Air Force First Lieutenant Murray Borden, a F-4 Phantom Navigator from Goldsboro, who, while on a combat mission in North Vietnam, was shot down on 13 October 1966 in his aircraft as they targeted enemy forces in the Quang Binh province, 10 miles north of the DMZ. There is also Master Sergeant William Sutton, a pararescueman from Goldsboro, who went missing in action, presumed dead, after his Sikorsky HH-53 helicopter was shot down in North Vietnam on 28 January 1970, as he and the helicopter crew that he was on attempted to rescue two F-105 Golf Thunder Chief crew members who were shot down by a North Vietnamese air-to-air missile as they attempted to take out surface-to-air missile sites. Finally, there's this story. After the pullout of the troops, the Vietnamese communist troops began retaking city after city, finally taking Saigon on April 30th, 1975. A few weeks later, a U.S. merchant ship, the Mayaguez, was captured by Khmer Rouge troops. Anchored off the island Koh Tang near Cambodia, the Mayaguez ship was found abandoned by the USS Holt, one of a few U.S. Navy ships sent to seize the ship and rescue the crew. Assuming the crew had been moved to a nearby island, the U.S. military contingent comprised of Navy vessels, Air Force Jolly Green Giant helicopters, and the Marines of 2nd Battalion 9th Marines assaulted the island of Koh Tang from the east and the west, while aircraft from nearby U.S. Navy carriers conducted strikes on the military camps. A landing team comprised of nearly 230 Marines were ferried by helicopter from nearby bases and ships, expecting to overwhelm and surround the Cambodian camps and rescue the U.S. crew. As the first troops began to offload on both beaches, the Cambodians opened fire. On the western beach, one helicopter was hit and flew crippled to ditch in the ocean about a mile away. The pilot had just disembarked his passengers and he was rescued at sea. Meanwhile, the eastern landing zone had become a disaster. The first two helicopters were met by enemy fire. They were told to expect between 20 and 40 Khmer Rouge soldiers on the island. Instead, between 150 and 200 were encountered. First, Lieutenant John Schramm, a helicopter pilot, his helicopter tore apart and crashed into the surf after the rotor system was hit. All aboard made a dash for the tree line on the beach. The story would be repeated as more assaults were made, some helicopters landing successfully, while others were damaged or downed. By mid-morning, when Cambodians on the mainland began receiving reports of the assault, they ordered the crew of the Mayaguez on a Thai fishing vessel and were left. The Mayaguez crew was recovered by the USS Wilson before the 2nd Marines was deployed, but the second wave was ordered to attack anyway. Late in the afternoon, the assault force had consolidated its position on the western landing zone, and the eastern landing zone was evacuated at 6 p.m. By the end of the 14-hour operation, most of the Marines were extracted from the island safely, with 50 wounded. As the final U.S. forces were withdrawn, a small 3-man machine gun squad was left behind to guard the perimeter. They had run out of ammo and were ordered to evacuate on the last helicopter, but in the fog of war were left behind and their absence not realized until the next day. It was their last contact. Lance Corporal Joseph N. Hargrove, born on 15 May 1951 in Mount Olive, North Carolina, was on that fire team, along with Private First Class Gary Hall and Private Danny G. Marshall. They were declared missing in action as of 15 May 1975. That was Lance Corporal Hargrove's 24th birthday. He is among the 39 from North Carolina still accounted for. And ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to recognize his wife, Gail, who is in attendance with us today. All heroes have their own stories, and all heroes have families who sit and await news. It is for them that we offer this flag folding ceremony, a ceremony performed at all military funerals as a final salute to those that have fallen. For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white, in a blue field representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into a flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor. White signifies purity and innocence. And blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellation of Air Force satellites that circle our globe, and on the fin flash of an aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every American who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on the United States of America, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's servicemen and women remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, we have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. As we close today's ceremony, I want to thank the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base Honor Guard for their participation in today's ceremony. I also want to thank you, the special guests from all over who came out to help me honor those who served during the Vietnam War. Finally, I want to thank those that served during that time and their families. Know that your sacrifice has not gone unnoticed or unappreciated. As President Calvin Coolidge famously said on 27 July 1920, "The nation which forgets its defenders will itself be forgotten." Let us not forget those that have borne the burden of battle. Please join us across the street at the Wayne County Museum for refreshments following the ceremony. Thank you, drive safe, and may God bless America.